welcome to this edition of Chat with the Chair. I'm Carol Coronas, CFMA's 2024-25 Chair, and I'm very happy to be here today with Rob Labbe. I have met him in person and really have been very, very influenced and inspired by what he brings to the construction industry as it relates to suicide prevention and mental health. Rob, I'd like for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got where you are, and let us know a little bit more about you.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, Carol, thank you for having me on. My background is growing up in my house, my father was a carpenter, and my grandfather was a carpenter. My uncles, you guessed it, more carpenters, my cousins. And so growing up, I just figured I would be out swinging a hammer as well. Until one day when my father told me that that's not going to happen and that I was going to go to college. So I ended up going to college for construction management. All right. So yeah, that's really where it all started. And for most of my career, I have been a superintendent and project manager, mostly on civil construction projects. And about 10 years ago, a former colleague of mine reached out to me and he said that there was an opportunity on the insurance side to explain construction operations to underwriters. So that's really where I came to the insurance side. And as far as today's topic with mental health and suicide prevention goes, growing up, I lost some family members to suicide, as well as friends in the neighborhood. Even in my career, there have been a couple of colleagues that have died by suicide. And several years ago, I just thought that I could use my platform and try to reach people. And there are certain things I've learned over the years, whether it was different types of red flags or, what have you. And I just like to pass on as well as learn. Every day we're learning, so it's I'm honored to have the opportunity.
Great. It's been a pleasure just hearing you talk about and talk so freely and so easily about a difficult subject. So can you tell us a little bit about why suicide prevention and this topic is important in the construction industry?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll talk a little bit about some statistics, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are well aware of the statistics, but I think it's important just to touch on it. And, I would say every year in the construction industry, as far as safety goes, let's start with safety. So from a safety standpoint, in our industry, we lose between 1,000 and 1,100 workers each year due to accidents and illnesses from construction operations. Okay. But it is estimated that we lose approximately 5,500 to 6,000 additional people in our industry to suicide. And really, after this has been discovered and people talking about this, it's really highlighted the issue. Otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it. So as far as the statistics go, somebody in our industry is 5 times more likely to die by suicide than die of a job site injury or illness.
Wow, that is astounding. It really is. As much attention as we pay to safety on the job sites, to know that it's 5 times more likely to die by suicide. That's just it's a staggering statistic.
Yeah, I'll just share a couple other things. So sometimes when I do a presentation, I've got a slide that goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So the 5 is what we just talked about 5 times.
Mhm.
4, the construction industry is 4 times the national average when it comes to the suicide rate. Okay, so this is a tough business. 3, I like to say there are 2 things about number 3 that I want to point out. And number 1, 3 typically represents that men are 3 times more likely to take their life than a woman. Okay.
And
And
is that globally or only in the construction industry that 3
so
times?
that would be nationally.
Wow. Wow.
So, you know, in our business too, we have a lot more men, and
Mhm.
I'll actually get into in a second why construction. But something else I wanted to point out, I've done a lot of research, and what the number 3 means to me, it means that when somebody dies by suicide, that a family member of theirs becomes 3 times more likely to take their own life. So this problem, even though somebody dies by suicide, the problem still goes on within their families, or has the potential to. And then the number 2 represents veterans. Veterans, there are a lot of veterans in our industry, and veterans are twice as likely to die by suicide than the average person. And then I always say the 1 stands for if we can just find the 1 person that needs us today, you know. So and then, you know, when it comes to construction, people say, why? What is it about construction that is different from other industries? And I think we have some similarities between certain industries, but I want to point out some differences. And when it comes to construction, it's male dominated. I believe one of the statistics I saw was something in the neighborhood of was it 90%, 93% male. So because males have a higher rate, you know, that adds to it. Again, it's a male dominated industry. Okay, there's a lot of macho. All right, there's people have to build the biggest building. They have to hang the heaviest piece of steel. Okay, they have to drive the largest pile, or they have, you know, I worked on a tunnel project where each of the shifts, day shift, swing shift, graveyard shift, they compete against each other. All right. So you got, you know, if we're mining a tunnel, how many feet did day shift get? All right. Because swing shift is going to get more. All right. And then graveyard shift is going to get more. But what they don't say is a lot of the other stuff during the shift that they didn't do. All right. They're focused on production, and then they left a mess to other people. But anyway, so it's really, it's an industry where the focus is on you know, being competitive. It's mentally demanding. All right, so we're always trying to, especially, look, I'm in the New York City area, but you know, it doesn't really matter where we are around the country. In a lot of urban areas, we're trying to build something on a postage stamp. All right. And then we're trying to get approvals for all these different things. And the design is constantly changing. You know, I've worked on some projects where one of the biggest things we would say in our office, or one of the things we'd say most commonly, was we have to build it before the designer keeps changing it.
Of course, yes.
So, you know, you have that. You have, you know, the toughest part of this job in our industry, I say the easiest part is building the job, and the toughest part is collecting the money. So if you're a business owner, all right, and again, my father, when he actually tried to have his own company for, you know, I don't know how many years it was, but it wasn't successful because he was a nice guy.
Right.
He often didn't get paid, you know. So you know, and that brought some challenges around the dinner table at home, you know, arguments at home, right? Because my mother was the bookkeeper, you know. You know, but in our business too, we have a lot of travel. You know, people travel around the country. They go from one job to another job. They move. they're away from their family. You know, some people who are in certain situations, whether it's on the manual side, they may develop back problems or other injuries, and then now they're masking them, you know, with drugs, and maybe that gets them, you know, down a road. And you know, I could go on and list a bunch of these issues, but we also have a high divorce rate. And from a lot of the things I already said, there's really no wonder why there's a high divorce rate, right? And you know, one of the things I will mention is, and I was in the concrete business, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, it was often said that you're only as good as your last concrete pour. All
Mm-hmm.
right, and I can't believe it, but even today, you know, because we have humans involved, we're always going to have some mistake somewhere. All right, whether
Right.
survey laid out the anchor bolts in the wrong place, whether the
Mm-hmm.
elevation's wrong, whether the designer made a mistake, the engineer, whatever the case is. But if the concrete is bad for whatever reason, you got to rip it up and do it again, and it's expensive. And a lot of times, you know, people will get fired, their reputation's on the line. So, you know, there's a lot of stresses in this business at all levels.
Definitely. Having had construction experience in construction and in concrete, and currently working for a precast concrete company, I definitely understand that. It's very true. There are so many pressures to be perfect, pressures to get the job done, pressures in really all areas, even in the finance departments of collecting the money, change orders, things like that. So definitely connect with what you're saying here for sure. I want to ask now, shift just a little bit to ask, what should people do? And this is a question that I often get. If you see something, if you see people who are down, people who are acting under the weather or not like themselves, or to see maybe suspected substance abuse or something like that, what is the best thing that we as concerned people for our loved ones and colleagues do?
Sure, thank you. When it comes to substance abuse, now what I think is great is that more and more companies are investing in their supervision to be able to pick up on that. All
Mhm.
right, pick up on some of the signs of somebody who may be intoxicated. I'll tell you, uh, I've seen for years contractors do what you call a stretch and flex program on a job site, where at the beginning of the shift, you might see workers and they're stretching. All right. And somebody will say, "Hey, Rob, does that cut down on workers' injuries?" And I will say, maybe, you know. And you know what, there are studies showing it does, and so forth. But what I think is even better is at 7 a.m. before the shift is starting, or whatever time the shift starts, that the office people are outside stretching with the crews, all right? Or everybody is outside stretching. And when you see somebody stretch, you're seeing their limitations. You're
Mhm.
seeing their reaction to the command that they're being given. You see what time they show up. There are a bunch of different things that not only can the foreman, the superintendent pick up, but everybody who's usually spending time in the office, you know, otherwise they'd be sending emails at the beginning of the shift. They're out, and maybe they can pick up on somebody that doesn't look right, or they're only stretching to a certain point. And you know, you can go up and you can have a conversation with people. And is that a time when somebody could, you know, pick up on, you know, somebody being,
Mhm.
you know, under the influence?
I hadn't heard that before, so that's very interesting. I like that thought.
You know, I think some of the other signs too are, you know, if you see somebody who's just, they don't seem like they're their self,
Mhm.
you're picking up on some of the different signs. Maybe you have somebody there who has always been happy, right? They come to work, they're happy, they're making jokes during the day. And maybe even if it's at that time in the morning when you realize, wow, you know, so and so just didn't seem himself this
Right.
morning, or herself. You know, it gives you the ability to talk to the person, or, maybe you circle back an hour later, or whatever the case is. But, there are a lot of different signs. And I'll just give you an example. I have a friend of mine. He's not in the construction industry, but he suffers from, depression and anxiety. And he works the overnight shift.
Mhm.
Right? And the same thing is true in our business. We have different shifts, okay? But what I pick up from him at times is if he calls me up as his shift is ending, it could be 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Maybe he's just calling to say hello. All right. Maybe he's sending me a text ahead of time saying, "Hey, Rob, are you available?"
Mhm.
Okay. And I might say, "Hey, I'm heading into a meeting. I'm with somebody. Can I call you back later?" And he'll say yes. If he reaches out to me at 11 o'clock in the morning, I got to pick up that phone, because that's not normal.
Right.
If you call me up at 9 o'clock at night, that wouldn't be normal either. So I think we have to look at, some of the different signs that, people are reaching out to us by, and evaluating those. Not everything is mental health or suicide related. Like you were saying before, there could be a substance abuse, and there are a lot of people in our industry that are hurting for one reason or another.
So you've mentioned just a few cases there of people reaching out. What is the best way to try to reach out to someone who you suspect may be having trouble? Are there some things you might be able to do to ease in to those conversations?
If you notice that somebody's off a little bit,
Mhm.
not their, I'll say, normal self,
Mhm.
it would depend. It would really depend on how you think the best way to approach them is. If you're able to talk to them off to the side, if you have a good relationship with somebody. I mean, if I don't have a good relationship with somebody, it's tougher for me to know much about them. But if I suspect something's going on with somebody, I might say, "Hey, can you help me with something?" And maybe I really don't need help with anything, but I just
Right.
want to, get them off to the side, or talk to them, or grab a cup of coffee. And I will tell you this, a couple years ago, I actually went for what's called ASIST training. It's applied suicide intervention skills training.
Okay.
And it was 2 full days. All right. And there's a lot. Okay. It is not an easy 2 days. Okay. Because
Mhm.
it's a tough subject. And intentionally, people are put into uncomfortable situations.
Mhm.
Okay. You're put in situations of where either you're the person that is going through, some of these thoughts, or
Mhm.
you're trying to talk to somebody. And, what's really good about it is there are a bunch of different signs that you could pick up on. All right. And that's a totally different episode. All right. But there are different signs. And when somebody gives you one of these signs, then what you're hoping to do is you're hoping to get that dialogue to go a little bit further. And you're
Right.
hoping that they're willing to throw some information out there so that you can talk to them a little bit more. And then if you're able to get them to a point where it's a turning point, where they're no longer really thinking that is their only way out, and then now you're talking to them about developing a safety plan. So like I said, it was some great training. There's
Mhm.
all different types of training. There's, I mean, the list goes on. The AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, has Talk Saves Lives. And I believe you can just go online, and they may have these 1 hour, I would say live sessions. I believe it's best. I actually went to one that was in person at a local library, and I just thought it was great in person.
Mhm.
Is mental health first aid. VitalCog is another one that a lot of people are also doing. So the list goes on, and just there are a tremendous amount of resources for a lot of this training. But I will tell you that even after the training,
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody's ever really going to feel like, wow, I'm ready for this. I
Right.
mean, I had some of this training, and I've been caught off guard when somebody sent me a message, and I'm like, oh boy, now it's time to react.
Right, right. Mentioning that training and resources, I know we're going to try to include quite a few of those in the description of this podcast. And CFMA always stands ready also to provide more resources. One of the ones that we really try to promote is the preventconstructionsuicide.com that will have a lot of resources there. So thank you for that. I know it is a tough position to be in when you feel like you want to help, knowing how to help. And you've even given me a few little tips there and a few little hints. So I appreciate that. And we'll go for more training in that regard, because that's one thing I'm a little bit unsure about. I'm going to shift just a little bit to those people that are left behind when someone dies by suicide, especially a loved one or a colleague or someone we're used to having there before us and they're not anymore. Can you talk about some of the postvention methods and where we can go in terms of people who are left behind?
Sure, and that's a good point. A lot of people hear a lot about prevention,
Mhm.
and that's where we're raising a lot of awareness. And then intervention is when we have the ability to recognize some of those signs and step in and try to make a difference. And then, as you say, there's postvention, and that's when there is an event. And what do we do at that time? You
Mhm.
know, and I will tell you that I don't think too many organizations are truly ready when that comes. I mean, how ready can you be? You may have the resources, but you're really hoping nothing happens.
Mhm.
But I will tell you that I recently got a phone call about a leader of a construction company that died by suicide. And one of my colleagues reached out to me, and he said, "What type of resources are there at this time?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Wow." I said, that's terrible that that organization is going through that. Small organization, so it's a family, and just the smaller an organization, most likely that it's more of a family. They've known each other
Mhm.
for years and so forth. So I was just like, wow, what can we do? And I went to some of the resources that I had, and it was really a document that I believe was put together by the I want to say United Survivors. It was Dr. Sally
Mhm.
put it together, and I believe this resource is on the CIASP website, the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention's website.
Mhm.
And that document, I believe, is also on the CFMA's website. But it's a phenomenal guide. It's called A Manager's Guide to Suicide Postvention in the Workplace. And I believe it's about 20 pages long. And there are some great diagrams in there. There are uh, templates for announcements that you may be announcing the death to employees and so forth. So believe it or not, there are resources out there. Unfortunately, you know, um, that they were developed, I mean, they were developed for this reason, to get it out there. But, there have been a lot of people that are doing some great work in this space. And I know we already mentioned the construction industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, and there are just a tremendous amount of, people that are just doing great work. And, like I said, Dr. Sally is one of those people that's really promoting that.
Yeah, I know we talk about, and you mentioned that statistic, and when you mentioned the number 3, that the families of those who are left when someone dies by suicide, everything that they have to go through, the guilt and just all kinds of things. And so the people who are affected by this, it's not only the individual, but it's also the people who are near and dear to them. And that's what makes it even more tragic, this whole topic, and what makes mental health just so important. I know that sometimes people don't really seek help because of the stigma and everything that's involved with that. What can you say about those people who may not want to self-declare or go and get help? Are there ways that we can try to help reduce that stigma around that, or are there ways that people can go and get help anonymously?
There are plenty of resources out there. I would say one of the big things about reducing the stigma has been raising awareness. Okay. So, again, we're in a tough industry. There are a lot of tough individuals, on our job sites. And really, our industry, it's about building things and fixing things as well, right?
Yes.
So the people in our industry are problem solvers, all right? And it's very difficult for a problem solver to step forward and admit that they have problems.
Yes.
So there is a big stigma around this, especially in our industry. And I would say that there's been some tremendous work with some of the leaders in our industry. There are people that are talking about their own stories. And I mean, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, I don't want to do it because I know I'm going to leave people out, but there are people that are just out there, and they're traveling the country, and they're sharing their story, whether it's at conferences or on job sites. And a lot of times leaders of companies, are very stoic. They don't have flaws, or they're not telling you about their flaws. But a lot of these people are saying, hey, you know what? I'm human. Okay. And, one thing I will tell you is there are plenty of people that are 40s, 50s, 60s, like myself, that are, we're working on a job site, we're working long hours, we got all that stress that's going on in our head. Okay. We're trying to move up in our organization, trying to get paid. You mentioned before change orders. I worked on a project one time, okay, where the owner of the project said, oh yeah, I told you to do the work, but I never told you I was going to pay you for that work. And we were like just sitting around a table. So it was, it's a stressful business. Okay.
Right.
So what I will tell you is there are a lot of people that have kids at home. All right. So, again, if I'm at work all day, I'm trying to get my job done. Now I'm also dealing with my kids' problems. Right. And a lot of people that have kids, I say occasionally that some of our kids are teenagers, all right, and I believe the teenage years are very tough.
Yes.
Kids, they're trying to figure out who they are, right? The chemicals are changing in their brain, their body's changing, all right, and it's changing at faster rates than the kids around them, and their friends are changing. All right. And just there are all these, hey, and what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And that's what their grandparents are asking them or whatever. And they're like, I don't even know what I want to do today, right? And then you have, people like us where we're going off to a stressful business, okay? And then people like us, if we're fortunate, we may still have one parent around, maybe
Right.
two, but the
Yeah.
ones that we have around are probably sick or they're
Mhm.
dealing with some of those other things. So here we are, we're stuck in the middle, all right? And
Mhm.
we're in a very challenging industry, all right? And we're trying to deal with those stresses on both sides. And then we could own a business and we're not getting paid or just, there's a lot that's going on.
Mhm.
So when I say that these leaders are stepping up and they're talking about uh, their flaws, or we have leaders of organizations now that are putting their money where their mouth is, and they realize that they have people in their organization that are struggling. So they may pay for a benefit for an employee assistance program,
Mhm.
or they may say, you know what, the number of visits to a doctor, that's not enough, and they're beefing up their benefits, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot between some of these leaders that they're saying, hey, you know what, this is a big problem. And what we need to do is we need to provide training throughout our organization. This isn't an issue in the field. This is
Mhm.
an everywhere issue, you know? And, I've even talked to some CEOs of organizations before, and they said to me, one guy who was about 60 years old, he said to me, yeah, the kids nowadays don't get it. And I was there scratching my head, and it's like, this isn't a kids thing. This is
Right.
an thing. So we're hit hard, throughout our industry, all different ages. It's a challenging business. Um, you know, Raising awareness, that was one thing that I think people have been doing a tremendous job. I think there are so many people out there that are really showing um, their flaws, I could say, and
Mhm.
just saying, hey, look, I'm not perfect, just like you,
Mhm.
and I got separated from my wife. I went through a divorce, and they're talking about
Right.
different, and you know what? It's when it comes to suicide, it's really it's a whole bunch of things that kind of come together,
Mhm.
right? It's there's there's this problem and there's that problem and this problem. In construction too. Here's something else we do in construction. We basically work ourselves out of a job, right? We build a building, and now there's nothing left to construct in that building.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we hope we have another building to go to.
Mhm.
And that's really what our industry does. We go to work every day and we don't know if we're going to have that job at the end of the day because of a million different
A
reasons, right?
million different reasons,
You
yes.
know,
Yeah, it's interesting. I know you said early on that it is an industry that primarily is male, but I know, we have a lot of things going on in our homes with our friends, with our spouses, with our children and our parents, so many different things. So I know that some of the things that affect women end up affecting men as well because of that, but we are becoming more and more, getting more females into the industry and especially in the finance realm, and it is becoming even more like in terms of superintendents and project managers and things like that. And I know those women have even more pressure on them than the men have, because not only do they have to be good at their job, but they have a lot of other things that they're fighting. So I think just considering those gender problems also that are out there, those things that everybody is going through, and how it affects the entire ecosystem. You talk about being on time, having to get to work, having to deal with children, having to deal with all of those things also. It can be a lot, and it really has effects on the entire family. So interesting to be aware of all of those things. Sometimes we haven't really made life easier just in a lot of ways, not to even mention social media and all the pressures that gives us. Have you found, and I know you've been in this line of work for about 10 years and were in construction before that, do things seem to have gotten worse at all to you, or what are you seeing like trend wise?
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting question, right? Because number one is how do you keep the statistics? So, and then there are a lot of things that are underreported. But what I would like to just touch on a little bit is you were talking about the gender differences.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, diversity is a good thing, right? And I would say when I first started in this business, when I was in the 90s, all right, we're almost in a different industry now. All right. There's so many more women in the business. There are more cultures in the business. And so you get to learn from other people. All right. And I will tell you this, that postpartum depression is something that I knew nothing about until somebody educated me, somebody in the construction industry who shared a story about what she went through. And it was absolutely eye-opening. And then I thought to myself, wow, could that have been what was going on at home? Or could that be something that's going on, with other people in our business? And men may not know, may not be picking up those signs. So I found it very interesting. And had she not have shared that with me, I would never have thought about that, And then something else too, you talk about like women in the industry, and I've met women in all different positions in construction companies. I've met superintendents, okay, and I've been a superintendent, and I'll tell you, I've had some serious discussions on a job site, right? Voices raised, people getting ugly, all right, and it's a different business. So like I said, I've been a male superintendent. I would have to imagine that, just like you're saying, there are a lot of women superintendents that are, really fighting harder to have that position. I belong here and doing a tremendous job. Okay. But again, I can't say I know what they're going through. And then you add some other things, and we're all unique, right? We all have our own health problems. We have, other problems as well. So I do think it's interesting when it comes to, diversity and learning from other people. We have to also be able to listen to other people in order to learn from them, but I just wanted to, just to mention that point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and for us all to be aware as much as we can that other people are going through just a long, long list of things. And so to really keep that in mind, I know we all have standards, we have jobs we have to do, but just to be in touch with that, I think is really important. So I know we talked about a lot of things. This can be a topic that leads us down to, a sad state. I think we've talked about some good things as well, but where is the hope in all of this? Where can we come out of this in a good light?
Where is the hope? There's plenty of it, I would say. And I'll tell you what fuels some of us is when we see what other people are doing that are positive. Okay. And I would say every day in our industry, I am seeing people doing positive things for other people. Okay. Whether it's somebody that's just looking out for somebody that doesn't even know them,
Right.
and I've seen people take phone calls from somebody that they didn't know, and they walked them down a road and tried to understand what their problem was, or what their challenges were, and tried to figure out what was the best next step. I have stood next to people as they've received some of these phone calls from people. It's just amazing, and just that there are people out there that care. I will say that we'll talk about a little bit more about optimism and hope, but this past year, I was at the Construction Work in Minds conference, and that was in Kansas City. And that particular conference had about 600 people from the construction industry that took 3+ days out of their week to go talk to other people about mental health, suicide prevention, substance abuse, and a lot of these things that are related. And there was some phenomenal discussions, eye-opening, and again, just to be in a community together with people like that who, you meet these people, you're at an event like that, and you get to know people, and it's like, hey, you start talking about things, and then, people, that network that we build, those people will reach out to each other and share different ideas. And I think when it comes to safety, a lot of times we talk about stealing people's ideas. Okay, so we say there are no secrets in safety. All right, so if you want a safety plan, fine, I'll send you one over. Okay, somebody says, hey, do you have a spreadsheet for this, or what app do you use? In the safety business, people share things. All right, so when it comes to physical safety, the same thing should be true, with mental safety. So how are we getting better? And I think a conference like that, where people can come together, talk about different ideas, and then bring those ideas back to their organizations, think about things that they can do for other organizations, whether they're local, regional, national. But I think there are a lot of great people that are doing things all around, and again, it's very inspiring. When you look on, let's say, LinkedIn each day, and you see, oh, this person's over here doing this conference, this person's meeting with these people, oh, these people just did mental health first aid for 85 people, and I think those people are doing a great job by posting it, because it's fueling other people to continue doing it, and it's like, oh wow, hey, they did that over there, oh, I'm going to reach out to that person and see if they can, stop by New York, or, hey, how did you guys do that? So again, I just think there's a lot of positivity. There are some big hills to climb. We have a long way to go, but I think there's a lot of positivity, and I will tell you that I often get text messages, phone calls, emails, and it's like, people reaching out to other people because they think they can help. So I think we're doing a good job as an industry. There are a lot of different events that we're doing within our communities, different things that we're doing, different ways to raise awareness and keep that going. I mean, we talk about hard hat stickers. I have I'm trying to see where I got this, but I have this coin right here. It's a 988. You okay? I think I got that at the Work in Minds conference. I can't remember who gave it to me, but I know that the AGC of America, in many of the different chapters, are doing what they call hope coins. And I would say, to the best of my knowledge, I believe that it was started in Missouri, and there's a guy, Brandon Anderson. He's doing a phenomenal job. He's all over the place, all around the country. And when we saw them, we actually took a hard hat sticker that we were already giving to our to workers on job sites, and we decided to create one that also has a QR code on the backside that'll get people to the 988 resources. So again, this is stealing ideas back and forth. This was not my idea, and I will not take credit for it, but it's something that that we're doing. Something else that has been popping up around the country that I'll share is another one. It's called the Hike for Hope, and that's a walk that actually started in Florida for the construction industry. So there are people down there that decided to do this. I think they have it in 5 or 6 cities or locations in Florida at this point. Last year it was expanded to Georgia, West Virginia, where else? New York, of course. There's been a lot going on, and these events, what they're doing is they're not only bringing people in the construction industry together, but they're bringing communities together.
Right. I know there's so much to it. Thank you for bringing up all those topics of optimism and hope that we have in this. And early on in this conversation, you mentioned also we have that one-on-one hope, one life at a time, one connection at a time. And CFMA is really a great community trying to promote mental health and suicide prevention throughout our community, throughout our companies, and all the way down, both globally, community, and one life, one connection at a time. So Rob, I so appreciate your spending this time with me, making this connection. And I know that people who take the time to listen to the podcast will get a lot out of it. We're going to be posting a lot of resources also in the description. And we have the big one that CFMA really promotes also that's very accessible, preventconstructionsuicide.com. So any last words for us, Rob?
I just want to say I appreciate you making this your topic this week, and I appreciate you having me on. And again, I appreciate CFMA and what they've done over the years for this topic. So I think we're making a big difference. And again, I have that optimism that that's just going to continue.
Thanks again. We really appreciate it. Until next time.